Some adventures begin with years of planning. Others begin with a small boat, a curious mind, and the willingness to see where the waterways lead. Today's guest is Sandy Mackinnon, author of The Unlikely Voyage of Jack the Crow, the much-loved tale of sailing and cruising a humble mirror dinghy from the UK to the Black Sea. We're talking about The Voyage, the new sequel, and why the best adventures often happen in the smallest boats. Hi Sandy, great to have you here. Before Jack the Crow, what was your relationship with adventures? Were you always someone who looked at a map and wondered, I wonder if that's possible?
Oh, yes.
Where is your adventure spirit from?
Well, do you know, I think a lot of it stemmed from two things. One was that when I was living in Australia, grew up there, and when I was 8, my parents, my mother's English, and my parents decided to pick up the whole family and take them over to England for a couple of years, meet all the English relatives. And back in those days, it was almost the last time people would do this. We went by ocean liner, a good old P&O liner.
Right.
And as an 8-year-old, that was just the most incredible adventure. And it tied in with everything I'd ever read. You know, I grew up on reading Dr. Dolittle and Narnia and books about, and Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn. And there was something really magical about traveling the slow way, not just heading to an aeroplane, climbing into a metal tube and getting out the other end. And I still vividly remember, seeing Table Mountain in Cape Town for the first time and sailing along and seeing turtles and whales and coming to the Canary Islands and Morocco and going to the markets. And there was just something that set in place the idea that the sort of adventures that were had by Phileas Fogg in Around the World in 80 Days or Bilbo Baggins setting off on foot, they were possible and an incredibly rich way to travel. So I think there was that. And it also combined with the fact that every book I ever loved as a kid had a map in the front. They were always those books, again, like the Narnia books, the Lord of the Rings, etc. Swallows and Amazons. Yes. And yeah, my life has always edged towards being a bit of a sort of story, a storybook for children. Yes. So it's much more that sense of adventure than the idea of a really gung-ho, I've got to challenge, the limits and climb Everest or get to the South Pole. It's never been anything like that at all. Right. It's always been, well, let's see if I can play the part of somebody in Wind of the Willows. Something a bit more gentle and whimsical.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Wonderful. I've read a lot of the same books. I think grew up in the same literature. So yes, maps. In fact, for fun, I drew maps just for fun as a kid, invented maps, right? So anyway.
Oh, me too. Right. Those beautiful hand-drawn maps with little mountains and rivers and forests and calligraphy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And then I guess we'll talk about Jack the Crow. So I guess the question everybody's going to ask about that is, what possessed you to look at a mirror dinghy and it says, I think, yes, that will do.
Well, yeah, again, look, we were lucky enough to have a holiday house in the Snowy Mountains in Australia, right by a large lake. And my mother, who has always been a really adventurous, energetic soul, she had a little mirror dinghy called Firefly.
Wow.
And she'd grown up on the Swallows and Amazon books in England as a child. In fact, the writer of those Swallows and Amazon books, which I don't know if they're familiar over there, but about kids sailing and having adventures on the Lakeland lakes.
Yeah.
Her godfather was related to Arthur Ransom.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, she brought us all up sailing on Lake Jindabyne. older brother, 2 older sisters, and myself. So we fitted the Swallows and Amazon family profile exactly. John, Susan, Titty, and Roger. And Mirrodinghi just was the boat of my childhood, and therefore had a type of romance to it.
Yes.
And there's also a practical reason. I'd also sailed other boats like lasers and so on.
Right.
But I realized that when I was going to go down the River Severn and the canals, lots and lots of bridges. And of course, the canals aren't designed to be sailed on at all. They're designed for narrow boats, which are all quite low. And the problem with a laser or something more modern is you can't lower the mast. You can't easily lower the mast while you're traveling. Whereas a mirror, of course, has that lovely gaff rig or gunter rig. I've never quite known the difference between the two. And even the mast itself, I hooked up on a really ingenious pulley system so that I could release a pulley and the whole front stay would slacken off and the entire mast could lean back and I could glide under a bridge without stopping and then pull the mast back up again and keep going. Well, that was the theory. I think of the 100 bridges I went under and tried that stunt, it worked once. The other 99 times, the whole thing would collapse on top of me, or would bang and scrape our way under the bridge, or whatever. But there was one occasion where I was sailing along, was able to lower the gaff, release the front stay, the whole thing leaned backwards, glided under, pulled everything up again, kept sailing. And of course, that was the one occasion when there weren't people to witness it. There was nobody standing on the bridge. The other 99 times I was a cause of huge hilarity to passers-by. But on that one occasion, the only witness was a lonely heron, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good little boats for nano cruising.
Yes.
For small-time cruising.
What surprised you most about that boat? I mean, maybe let's go back. Maybe not everybody knows what you've done with that boat. I think we can say, you went to from UK to pretty far up in the UK, really. It started on a mirror and went all the way to the Black Sea.
Well, exactly. And the odd thing about it was that I never intended to go that far.
Correct.
It really was. I'd been working in the school. Lovely old-fashioned school for 6 years, very happy, but had, time to move on. And I had this lovely little vision of, wouldn't it be wonderful, rather than catching a train or driving away by car, wouldn't it be great to have a party in the woods one lovely September evening, invite all my friends and colleagues and, a number of students, and do that classic thing of rowing away into the sunset.
Yes.
And that's the other thing about a mirror dinghy, of course, is a lot of them are equipped with oars.
Yes.
And it really was just going to be a stunt to fit my drama teacher pretensions. And I was just going to row away into the sunset, as I did. I had that party. And I was going to go 2 or 3 days down the canals onto the River Severn, perhaps. And the guy who ran the sailing club, he said, "Oh, yeah, wherever you get the boat to, I'll come and pick it up and you can carry on." But neither he nor I envisaged that where I got to was the Black Sea over in Romania.
Right, exactly.
Where that was, So it really was a matter of just making it up bit by bit by bit and thinking, well, I've got this far. Well, gosh, can I get round onto here? And, I can get onto the Avon River at Bristol. And, oh, there's a canal. I didn't know that. And, it takes me onto the Thames. And, wow, let's go and discover the source of the Thames. And, and so on and so on. And
so many great adventures. So many great adventures in there.
Yes.
The portage sometimes you had to do when they wouldn't let you use it. Pretentiously they wouldn't use it because you're not a real boat or something, right? So you have a lot of different adventures.
Right.
Different adventures.
Yeah, I did indeed. And look, the other thing about a mirror dinghy is it is small enough, just small enough to be handled single-handedly, manhandled ashore. And later in the later adventure, which perhaps we'll get to, so many people had said, you've got to take a bigger boat. But I was adamant because a bigger boat, you cannot run ashore anywhere. And I knew there would be lots of times when, in order to get out of bad weather, I'd need to land on a beach or get up a tiny little creek inlet with only 4 inches of draft, and I needed to be able to land and literally drag the boat ashore. And if it had only been 2 feet, 3 feet longer, that would have been impossible. I would have relied always on harbours and ports. Yes. So it was strangely a sensible decision rather than a crazy decision.
No, to me, it makes total sense. I love the mirror dinghy, and it's perfect size to run anywhere really and get out of the way if you need to. Yeah. So I love that. So
that's right.
So was it the right boat? It is. It was.
It was. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And another thing, Stefan, I am technologically and technically hopeless. I am not at all competent. If it had been a fiberglass boat and I'd put a hole in it or damaged it, there's no way I could have mended it. But a good old wooden boat, even I could just patch it, screw something in, unscrew this, glue that. And so there was something so good about it being within my capability of fixing, patching, mending.
And there was a lot of that, actually. Yes.
Yeah. yes, far more than there should have been. I was a bit gung-ho. I know so many boat owners who are incredibly precious about their boats and don't allow the slightest knock or buff or scratch. And I go, no, I can't afford to be that precious.
No.
Plow on, and if it gets a dint or a bump or a scrape, that's a battle scar. A battle scar.
That's right. Yeah. That's the beauty of that. You don't care, just fix it up, and if it gets scars, it's got scars. So. And
that's right. That's right.
And you fix that. You fix the sails too. I know you've had some issues with some of the sails sometimes, right? So, so you do have a bit more skills than you think, I think.
Well, I think I developed them as I went. It was a steep learning curve in some of those areas. Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, it's also a very shallow draft. Literally, at times I was sailing along in 4 inches of water, literally ankle deep. And if you've got the centerboard up, you can skim along across a mud flat or up an extraordinarily shallow creek or little inlet, which saved my life on a number of occasions.
Nice. Yeah, that's the beauty of small boats for sure. For sure. Was it different that you had imagined? You could not imagine what that trip was going to be. Plus, you didn't know how long you were going to be. So it probably fulfilled a lot of adventure, I guess.
It certainly did. I've never been very good at looking into the future and anticipating the future. I think I read many, many years ago something by C.S. Lewis, who's one of my favorite writers, who warned against trying to foresee the future too much. He always said, in his religious way, he said, that's the devil's territory. The devil is always trying to get you to think of the future and not just what needs to be done in the present. And I think that went very deeply, that message. And I think it's been a huge source of happiness and contentment that I have always been prepared to just see what happens and never to predict. Because as soon as you predict and then it goes wrong, it just causes frustration and disappointment and resentment. Whereas if you take what the wind blows, and that's the other lovely thing about small boat sailing. There's the old practice that the monks in medieval Europe did was peregrinatio, where they'd put themselves in a tiny little boat, even without oars or a sail. And it was almost a religious practice to allow the the winds and the currents and the tides take them wherever they took them, and then they would regard that as where God wanted them to be. I'm sounding very religious. I'm not actually that religious, but there was a lovely idea.
It makes you appreciate the moment.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of that trip is appreciating the moment. I mean, you're right. You can't say what you're appreciating every help you get, every surprise you get, every the problems you've encountered, right? So, and resolving it.
And look, and balancing that up, of course. I mean, there were times when it was a little bit of forethought and practicing the idea of predicting the future would have been a little more useful. I mean, I remember the very first time I finally, after the first 3 or 4 days on the canals and disaster after disaster after disaster and thinking this is crazy, got onto the main river, the Vyrnwy River, finally broad enough to sail, beautiful breeze, spent an hour putting up the mast properly, rigging all the sails, getting it all done properly, launched, went round the bend, and there was a bridge so low that I had to take everything down again. And that was on my map. So, at that moment I was going, Sandy, all very well seeing what the future will bring, but occasionally look at the map, that would have saved me a couple of hours.
Well, you must have done some planning, because you did cross the channels. That's not, that's not trivial.
Well, exactly. But even that was very improvised, or rather I'd got to Dover.
Yes. And
the people were saying, it was funny, when I was further up in the heartland, Midlands of England, people were saying, oh, you could never cross the channel. No.
Of course not.
Too dangerous. That would be like trying to cross a motorway on your hands and knees, if you were a hamster. But when I got to Dover, I spoke to various people. I remember the harbour master, or the captain of the yacht club, said across the channel, Mirror-dinghy. Oh, yes, I don't see why not. Yes, my daughter went across on a windsurfer the other day. Yes, but you know what these 10-year-olds are like. I was, what? And she was back in time for tea. And they were extraordinarily blasé about the idea of crossing the channel. Far more blasé than they should have been. And in fact, one of the funnier elements of that, I did ring the Coast Guard.
Correct. You became friend with one, for what I remember. Yes.
That's right. And his advice, at first, I was ringing him, and on the phone, he sounded quite sort of stern. He said, all right, crossing the channel, Mirror-dinghy, right, well, let me give you some advice, young man. And I went, yeah, well, this is what I need, but I need advice on currents and navigation and wind and traffic. And he said, now, and he gave, he was talking about, now you'll be heading on a bearing of blah, 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 and when you are approaching Calais, there's a very important landmark. And he talked about a starboard buoy, and he said, now, as you're approaching Calais, there is a large, very distinctive white building. Now, that is a seafood restaurant, and whatever you do, don't go there, because I had the moule marinière last summer, and I was sick as a dog. But apart from that, good luck, goodbye. I was thinking, really, the entire body of advice for crossing the mirror in a channel dinghy, a channel in a mirror dinghy, was don't eat at that particular restaurant. That was it. That was the main bit of advice. So,
that's amazing.
But actually, also that my lack of preparation honestly saved my life then, because nobody told me that there are huge currents heading north and south in the English Channel. So if you head off at a certain time, you get swept north. Another time you get swept south. I had no idea. So I was on a bearing, and I had a little compass, and that was, I was sticking to that. But what I hadn't realized was that I was actually being carried north all the time I was sailing across. So rather than heading pretty well southeast, I was actually heading northeast.
Right.
Now, what that did for me was that took me out of all the main shipping channel, the cross-channel ferries, and if I had stayed on that bearing, I would have been run down 30 times over. As luck had it, I drifted out of that particular crossing traffic, and so lack of planning turned out very fortunate for me on that occasion. Someone's looking after me.
Yes, someone is. That's good. Were you ever scared?
Well, there are times when I should have been scared. Yeah, like that was a good example. So I'd calculated 4 hours to cross the channel. 9 hours later, I was out of sight of land. France was failing to materialize on the horizon.
Right.
And I should have been really scared. But whenever anything like that happens, I just get a sense of elation and a type of sense of exhilaration and a sense of the ridiculous nature of the situation, so that I actually get quite gleeful rather than scared.
Right.
And it's probably not a good survival trait. I should probably be more scared than I ever do get. But when things get really tough, I come alive. And it goes back to my mother, who thought it was not a proper sail out on Lake Jindabyne unless there was a capsize. That was part of the adventure. It was, if you just went out and sailed and came back without a mishap,
yes,
it wasn't worth doing because there was no story to tell.
No story to tell. That's the ones you remember too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I inherited that. The time I was most scared was way down in Romania, where I had been almost kidnapped by two gypsy fishermen who were, almost pirates, in the sense that they were kidnapping me with the aim of getting money out of me and robbing me, and genuinely threatening me with knives and so on. And I felt very, very, very unsafe. And then I was truly scared.
Right.
But something very odd happened. I was being led into the forest at the wrong end of a gun by somebody who at the time I thought was the king of the gypsies, the coldest, meanest looking man I'd ever met on a horse. I'd been taken away from my boat, led into the wilds of a Romanian forest, and I thought any minute now I'm just going to be asked to turn around and they'll stand me against a tree and shoot me. But even then, it must have just been the adrenaline speaking. I split into two people. There was the physical me walking along, literally knees knocking together, all the symptoms of fear, bowels churning, desperate to go to the toilet, sweating, voice hoarse, literally every physical aspect of fear. But the other part of me almost seemed detached from that. I don't think I was physically detached. It wasn't like a floating body or anything, but it seemed so detached. And that part of me was adrenaline-filled, was sparkling, was noticing how beautiful everything was. Look at that yellow leaf on that bramble. Oh, smell that horse. Gosh, hear that bird song. And I was filled with this extraordinarily fizzing sense of being alive that really made the physical body part of it seem irrelevant. It almost seemed as though, well, if it gets shot, there's this other bit that will be liberated to carry on. And again, I'm not trying to be religious, and I'm sure this was just the chemical reaction of adrenaline.
Right.
But certainly it felt as though I was, despite all the danger, that I was approaching something euphoric and otherworldly. So who knows? But I never want to be that scared again.
No. I think they brought you to the police or something, and the police kind of pushed them away from it, I remember. Something like that. I forget.
Yeah, well, details. Exactly. He turned out to be actually just a young officer who was being over zealous in his carrying out his duties, and I was saved by a more senior and very kindly Romanian officer who managed to explain the whole thing. Yeah, so it was a bit of an anticlimax.
A lot of the book's the Voyage itself. I mean, your book has been referenced by other people that have done the same journey, because that's the only reference of that, right? So I know somebody else has done that journey, a Canadian has done that journey, and he followed your book because that's the only guide that they have, right? But your book, so that's part of the strength of that. And the other strength of your book is your humor. I mean, there's a lot of laughing reading your book. I don't know if you realize that, but everybody that reads it, and for me, laughing out loud. So do simply funny things happen because you travel slowly, or because there's a lot of humor and funny things, or maybe language issues and things like that turn up, and or you just have a way to write this way, right?
Well, I think you're right. I think it's the traveling slowly that allows things to happen. It allows encounters. I mean, when you're on a boat going down a river, the sort of people you meet and the encounters you have are very, very different from the encounters you have in an airport lounge, sitting next to somebody chatting away for an hour while you wait for your plane. Mm-hmm. And you're often so dependent on people, and humor comes out either from their unfriendliness, which you can, of course, exaggerate like mad, but more often as well from their friendliness and their warmth and the fact that they want to join in or they want to be a vicarious part of your adventure.
Right.
And as you say, the language barrier also created some lovely moments. One of the favorite ones I tell is when I learned French at school, but it wasn't very good. And I was finally using French to explain. So when a Frenchman came down and said, non, ce n'est pas possible à dormir ici, it's not possible to sleep here. And I was trying to explain that I had a little mattress. And I said, oh, non, monsieur. À nuit, je suis très confortable. I am very comfortable because j'ai une petite maîtresse. And of course, what I said was, I'm very comfortable at night because I have a little mistress.
Right.
And being French, he understood that perfectly and went, oh, ooh la la, d'accord.
Never mind.
Yeah, that's right. And so, language problems certainly caused a bit of the humor.
Yes.
And of course, as a writer, you exaggerate and you bring out the...
Oh, I was going to say, does writing help you appreciate some of these? Some of those are absurd moments. Does writing help you appreciate that and document it properly? Yes.
It does indeed. And whenever I've traveled, even not in those more extraordinary ways, I've always written long letters back, mainly to my best mate back in Australia, who we've always shared a lovely sense of humor. Yes. And so you end up turning every incident into a bit of an anecdote or a story in which I come across as a bit of a buffoon or, things go wrong.
Yeah, you're very self-deprecating. Definitely.
Yeah. Only in my books. In real life, I'm a complete show-off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you know you were going to write a book while you were traveling, or the idea came later?
No, the idea came later. As I say, the first 3 or 4 weeks I was writing letters, long letters back home to my mate and to my parents. But then once I had crossed the channel, I thought, this adventure really is now worth chronicling. And I was actually given by a lovely French couple a little diary, a little red leathered bound diary. And there I started keeping more nuts and bolts notes, like, how many kilometers a day, where I came to, wildlife seen along the way, practical things. And then it was a combination of using my letters and this diary that then once I got home, I thought, there's probably a book in this. And I'd always wanted to be an author. I'd always thought I'd write children's books, but this was immediate material. And it's very, people say,
it's a book for big children.
Well, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And it's actually quite easy writing a book of true life events because you're not having to make anything up. It's all there. It's just about writing, well, and then the next day, this happened. And then the next week, this happened. So it wrote itself to a certain extent.
And it's been a huge success. Did that surprise you? I think it must have, right? It's been a huge success. And
Yeah. The publishers say it's called a slow burner, and they love slow burners. You know, sometimes somebody will write a book, a politician will write an autobiography. It'll sell 1 million copies in a week, and nobody ever picks it up again.
Correct.
Whereas this one has just gone on by word of mouth.
Right. Yeah.
And has gone on now for 20 years, I think, ticking away and still going out the bookshops. And I get a lot of correspondence from readers, and I do make a point. I always write back to people who write to me via the publishers or whatever. And in that way, I've actually made lots of really lovely friends.
Wonderful.
There are people now who I'd regard as some very, very close friends who started off just by writing to me, and then we've struck up a friendship.
Really? That's amazing.
Yeah, which is lovely.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's become a classic.
It is.
And that's where we're going to leave it for this episode with Sandy Mackinnon. Well, we're not quite finished yet. Sandy and I had so much to talk about that we decided to split this conversation into 2 episodes. In the next one, we'll pick up the story and talk about this brand new sequel to The Unlikely Voyage of the Jack Crow. It's called The Realms of Gold. So if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to come back for part 2. As always, thanks so much for listening to Nano Cruising. To support us, tell your friends about it. Come join us on the Nano Cruising Facebook group. Sign up for the email list on nanocruising.com. And if you'd like to help support the podcast, you can find us on Patreon. Until next time, seize your own adventure.
No inches humming, no engine roar, just a little boat and an open shore. Canvas snapping, the kettle's on. World feels big when the boat feels small. We don't need much, just wind and tide, a chart, a compass, and time to ride. Nano cruising, small boats, big seas, long jet dawn. Go where you please, trailer down, mask goes up, freedom fits in a coffee cup. Nano cruising, cast off the rules of their lies in the smallest hulls. Beach for a harbor, stars for a roof, salt on the deck and stories for proof. From quiet creeks to a weathered bay, if it floats, we're on our way. No marina lights, no golden gate, just the pull of wind and the call to wait. Nano horizon, small boats, big seas, oars and sails, and blistered knees, simple gear, honest miles, every nod earned every smile. Nano horizon, no place to hide, just you, the boat, and the turning tide. Keel or dagger, lug or gaff, plans go wrong, and we laugh. If you can tow it, if you can row, there's a long way left to go. Nano cruising, small boats, big seas, real adventure, no guarantees. If you've dreamed it, if you dare, there's there's a ramp somewhere